Good morning. Welcome back to day 2 of the forum. Great to see everyone. Just a brief announcement before I introduce the first speaker. It seems that we're not going to have the numbers of people we need for a round table today. So instead, we'll extend the question period. So put on your thinking caps. You won't have the ability to ask your questions or make your statements at the end of the day. So please do so at the end of each speaker, and that means we'll be finishing a bit early than what's on the agenda today.
Bonjour pour le deuxième jour et bienvenue. Comme disait Richard, les tables rondes, il y a des gens qui doivent partir parce que c'est vendredi après-midi. Je vais faire comme dans mes cours. Si quelqu'un n'est pas d'accord, il m'envoie un courriel. Et si un seul n'est pas d'accord, on fera quand même les tables rondes. Non, mais sérieusement, on ne pourra pas faire les tables rondes, je ne pense pas, donc on risque de finir plus tôt. Alors prenez toutes les opportunités de poser vos questions après les présentations. Voilà. Merci.
Excellent. Merci, monsieur. Excellent. It's now my pleasure to introduce Richard C. Larson. He's the Mitsu Professor of Engineering Systems at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He's applied his operations research background to a wide range of service sectors, including healthcare, public safety, homeland security, banking, transportation, and most recently, education. He's a co-founder and director of MIT Link, Learning International Network Consortium, and is co-founder and principal investigator of MIT Blossom, Blended Learning Open Source Science for Math Studies. Please join me in welcoming Richard to the podium. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. It's an honor and a delight for me to be here today before you to talk about my favorite MIT program, Blossoms, which has just entered its 7th year. So this is both an MIT activity and something that we have a set of volunteers both in the US and a number of partner countries. So just to show you a little bit about what Blossoms is, let's see if we can go to a sampling of some of the Blossoms video lessons. I won! I can't believe I won! Woo!
Crazy? Mind-boggling? Yes, indeed.
فكروا معا وسأعود إليكم.
Let's do an experiment here. Let's think like a scientist.
Welcome. Today we have a very interesting problem for you.
You can try to slap the mosquito, and no matter how hard you punch or hit it, it will survive.
A famous painting is stolen from a museum. Let's discuss the evidence you would want to collect in a forensic investigation.
Most closely related to a T-Rex?
The chicken seems more similar because its posture is similar.
How do we measure the distance to stars?
This is a perfect example of linear momentum and Newton's laws in action.
So, do you want to play another game?
Jisim air gula A.
Kekal pada 55 gram.
When I say the word chemical reactions, what comes to mind? Is this a chemical reaction?
Thank you for teaching this lesson to your class. Till next time, I'll see you out there.
We here? There we are. That's a little sampler of some of the Blossoms lessons. So we go back to the PowerPoints. There we go. Do we have two or one? We're going to do two? Good. So it's an initiative of MIT. As I said, we just entered our 7th year. And basically, we're connecting science and mathematics to the real world. And you might ask, well, what is Blossoms? Well, Blossoms is a set of math and science and engineering video lessons, interactive, to be used in classrooms in high schools and to some extent middle schools. So it's free, it's interactive, and it's available to all of us worldwide. Now you might say, well, gee, videos, isn't that going to put the kids to sleep? These are not long videos that go on for 40 or 50 minutes and would put them to sleep. These are videos that go in short segments, 2 or 3 minutes, fade to black, then the classroom is challenged to something they haven't seen before, out of the textbook, not in the textbook, some challenge. And the teacher, the in-class teacher, is still involved with guiding the class through a very active learning session to achieve some learning objective while the video is off. Once that learning objective is achieved, then the teacher goes back and presses a button, and the next video segment is shown. So we call the pedagogical model a teaching duet because half the teaching and learning is done by our video teacher. The other half, the teaching and learning, is done by the in-class teacher. So the in-class teacher is very, very important to this process. And in a 55 or 50-minute lesson, at least 25 of those minutes, the video is off, and the classroom is doing active learning, guided by the in-class teacher. And at most, 25 minutes is these short video segments. So Blossoms has many faces. We're very proud that at least half of our teachers are females. And we have country partners from around the world. And I'll explain a little bit about how the whole thing works as we go forward. Basically, right now, these are the languages that Blossoms is available in order of frequency. I would say about 90% are available in English, either made directly in English or voiceover translation or subtitles. Arabic is number 2 because we have country partners, Jordan, Lebanon, although they do theirs in English, Saudi Arabia, and so we have more Arabic language educational content than any other MIT program as of this date. We're also in Portuguese, Urdu, Malay, and Mandarin Chinese. As of the current time, we only have 6 of our 110 lessons in Mandarin Chinese. Now, here are some of the photographs of some of our partners. This was taken this past January. Some of our partners at Verican High School in Chongqing, China. We've trained 400 Blossoms STEM teachers from high schools from throughout the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And here's one of the 5-day training sessions. We've trained 200 males and 200 females. In Jordan, the Minister of Education and our Blossoms team give certificates of appreciation to the 17 teachers, both high school teachers and professors, who made Blossoms lessons for us in Jordan. And there's one of the certificates. Here are some physics doctoral students studying one of the Blossoms lessons in Lahore, Pakistan. Here is a recent training, this past summer, a recent training exercise we did via WebEx to about 90 individuals in Lahore, Pakistan. Pakistan is one of our country partners. So we'll see if we can go to the next video.
Hi, I'm Tanzila Ali from Superior University, Pakistan, majoring computer science there, and my favorite subject is programming, especially when it comes to building the logic for program or relating the real life stuff with programming one. And in today's lesson, we are going to do the same thing. We are going to learn programming right here, working in the kitchen. We will analyze that where are those basic programming concepts are applied while making a mango milkshake. So help me making the milkshake and I'll help you learn programming. Deal? So let's get started. While programming, there might be some situations when a certain task is assigned to you. Well, you know how to do this by using the marvelous brain you're blessed with, almost without thinking. But when it comes to parsing the task into discrete logic, well, you get stuck. Why does this happen? This is because the human thought process is much faster than the sense of observation. Life experience has enabled us to lump together a set of steps into one macro step. Driving a car is an example. As it has become so much intuitive, you don't need to think when to apply the brakes, for instance. But the computer does not have the advantage of life knowledge. It's a dumb machine, even it can't think anything. So, being a programmer, it's your challenge to move your smarts, all your knowledge, into discrete sequence steps that would direct the computer what to do, also called a program. So if this thinking process could be slowed down, you would be able to identify the steps that would followed by your brain, and eventually you will make a logic for computer program. Moving towards my mango milkshake, as a first step of recipe, I have to mix sugar with milk by using this blender. But I have poured the ice already in it. Now it's not a good approach to mix sugar in cold milk. So what I want is, I want this ice to be in this bowl and this milk to be in this blender. But how can I do this? Think about this problem, discuss with your fellows and teacher, and I'll see you in a while.
Okay, cut. This is a student in Pakistan who volunteered to work with us in making a Blossoms lesson. And you can see she's very natural. She's an excellent teacher and goes through this and actually creates 5 different algorithms, 5 of the fundamental algorithms of computer science by creating this mango milkshake. So this is an example of what comes from one of our partners in one of our partner countries. So our focus is not on memorization and rote learning. We are enemies of memorization and rote learning. Not that you don't have to memorize some things, but that's not the end in itself. That might be a necessary condition to get some core knowledge in an area, but that's not critical thinking. So we are focused on developing critical and creative thinking and a motivation of learning for life as well. So you might say, well, why do we need an initiative like Blossoms? And everyone is saying this these days, and we agree with this particular point of view, that we're now one global village. We have expanding economic globalization, and our children will need to be able to compete in this global economy. So we're all kind of one. And we live in a knowledge age. I know when we started and we didn't have any country partners and we didn't have Blossoms, we had a one-on-one, 1 hour with Her Majesty Queen Rania of Jordan, because we ran a Link conference there in 2007. And in the room were 2 of us Blossoms people from MIT, Queen Rania, and her Ministry of Education and her Ministry of Higher Education. And she's very articulate and very passionate about learning and education in her country. And she said, you know, what we don't do is we don't really develop critical thinking skills. We focus too much on teaching to a test, rewarding memorization, and having these evaluating people on standardized test scores. And in this country, in Jordan, unlike some other countries in the Middle East, we don't have oil and natural gas buried underground. Unlike some countries in Africa, we don't have diamonds and gold and silver buried underground. So we have things buried someplace else, which are our core assets. And basically, it's between the ears of our citizens. So that's where the gold and silver and gas, natural gas and oil are buried in Jordan. And she said, if you have a program that will enhance critical thinking skills in Jordan, you're welcome in this country. So Jordan was our first country partner as we started Blossoms 6+ years ago. So you might say, well, what's the framework for Blossoms? What are some guiding principles? Well, first and foremost, to improve math and science teaching and learning at the secondary level. Go beyond delivery of content. Too many of us confuse delivery of content and parroting back that content with true learning. And so we want to go beyond that. We want to introduce teachers in a gentle way, supportive way, to the power of technology-enabled education. We've done lots of on-the-ground, boots-on-the-ground research in Mexico, China, the US, and now our partner countries. And we find the majority of high school teachers and middle school teachers oppose technology-enabled education when the mental model is students sitting in front of the computer and the role of the teacher is ambiguous at best. You get a role reversal in terms of the power structure of the class, and you get a secondary role reversal in that invariably teenagers know a lot more about technology than the teachers do. And so the teachers are afraid of technology-enabled education when it means that most of the learning is supposed to happen with students sitting in front of computers. So we have a gentle way which actually enhances the role of the teacher guiding the classroom, and the teacher is still in charge. By the way, the National Education Association, the largest labor union in the United States, features Blossoms on its website. And I think it's because we enhance teacher performance and evaluations, and our role of technology-enabled education is not viewed as a job threat or a security threat to their members. We want to encourage universities to reach down to help improve science and math education in high schools. If you look at it from a systems point of view, the input to the freshman class in any university, including the University of Iowa, is the output of high schools. And for universities to ignore high schools, particularly if high schools aren't delivering the kind of preparation for university education that they should be, if the universities ignore that, they're ignoring a fundamental systems input into their own system. So there are many colleges and universities that work closely with high schools. In Boston, we have Boston University runs its own high school. Monterrey Tech in Mexico runs a number of high schools themselves. And MIT has scores of high school outreach programs that it runs year-round and particularly intensively during the summer. Finally, we want to initiate an educational resource that involves international partners in co-creation as well as co-utilization. So one of our tenets is, okay, let's say if Canada were to sign up and become a Blossoms partner, and we'll talk about what that might mean later on, that means that Canada would sign up to maybe creating 10 or 20 Blossoms lessons here, yourselves, with our guidance. And we have a multi-step process for the guidance. So we don't believe that all knowledge stems from Cambridge, Massachusetts, and should be graciously spilled on planet Earth. We think that knowledge comes from everywhere on planet Earth, and we should all contribute. And we call this highly vetted crowdsourcing for improving STEM education in high schools. So that's STEM education. Some people are advocating for STEAM education. The A in STEAM, making go from STEM to STEAM, is for arts. And so we're bringing in the humanities in there as well. And we do that with some of our lessons. And so what are the goals of Blossoms? Well, it's to, one, we want to show how exciting STEM can be. It's not some routine thing out of a textbook, let's say a math textbook, where you memorize the quadratic equation solution formula, which is a complicated square root, et cetera, and turn the crank and get the answer. It's really quite exciting. And to increase student interest in careers in STEM. Not just engineering and mathematics, but there's so many careers these days that requires knowledge of math and science. A lot of lawyers require this. Take abstract concepts and show it to the real world. A lot of students, again, teenagers, they say, why should I work hard and study this stuff? I don't see any relevance in my own life, and they should. And also to engage students in observation, experimentation, and discussion, for them to act and think like scientists and engineers. As I said before, critical thinking skills, to develop critical thinking skills. And last but certainly not least, to foster cross-cultural awareness, sensitivity, and appreciation. You know, too often, young people only hear about folks from other countries through, let's say, their parents, who might have a stereotypical view, or through news events. And in the news, you know what the headlines are. If it bleeds, it leads. So you have a very biased exposure to other cultures and other countries just by looking at the news. So one of the things about Blossoms is you can learn things in science and math and engineering from people who don't look like you, people who don't dress like you, and people who don't speak your language. So we also need all students these days to be STEM literate. It just can't be engineers and scientists and mathematicians. All of us. Just about every job these days that's growing up has some element of the need to become aware of math and science. As I said before, Blossoms is a gentle way of introducing teachers to technology-enabled education. And if you think about it, video has been with us for decades. So this is our mechanism. Video is not threatening. It doesn't require exotic programming skills. It doesn't require the knowledge of, is the software compatible between PCs and Macs? We've got a little laugh here at the side. And we're also, since we're dealing with developing countries, primarily actually so far, we cannot assume that they can support streaming video off the internet in the classroom. In fact, we can't assume that there's internet in the classroom. In fact, even in the USA, and probably here in Canada, many classrooms do not have internet connectivity. So we wanted to design a system where you don't require internet in the classroom. And Blossoms is it. Because every one of our Blossoms video lessons is downloadable onto the hard drive of a laptop. And so the teacher can take that downloaded video on her or his laptop into the classroom and just show it on a TV set or a projector and a screen, and that's it. So in some sense, we use the internet as a DHL forwarding device, and, but it's not required to be live in the classroom. Okay. So the classroom teacher. Here we have a photograph that I took in a classroom in a very poor part of central China in 2004. And I've already talked about how teachers often feel marginalized by students marshalling out into a computer lab and all sitting down in front of a computer, and they wondered what their role is. But this is the aha moment where we decided to start Blossoms. We were in the Ningxia province in China, which is one of the poorest on a GDP per capita basis. Almost 50% is a minority population, one of the minorities in China. And it was an unheated classroom with an old TV set and the videotape recorder donated by some businessmen in Hong Kong. And what the teacher was doing in this particular classroom, and this wasn't the only one, we saw several classrooms like this, she would show segments of a video that was made by a superlative teacher in Shanghai a few weeks earlier. This was downloaded by satellite, fixed position satellite, which is focuses just on delivering educational content throughout the country of China, okay? So even in the poorest villages, they had a satellite connector so they could download this stuff. And every 5 minutes or so, she would stop the video and then engage the class about what they had just seen. And they'd have a very active learning session. But the video itself was a 1 hour, a 60-minute lecture. So our aha moment was, hey, what if you created the videos to be interrupted? So don't just have a 60-minute lecture, and maybe you shouldn't even have lectures. Have something else. And have it go for 2 or 3, 4 minutes, stop, and then engage the class from the video. So that was our aha moment. It was 2004. It took us about 3 years to find the funding for this and to design it exactly right. But the Hewlett Foundation saw the light and helped us get our feet on the ground, initial funding. So, as I said, we encourage universities to reach down to help math and science education in high schools. And we've done this with the majority of our partner countries. Now, here are our partner countries, some of them. Jordan has created 17 videos. In Pakistan, so far we have 7 videos. Lebanon, so far we have 5. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, we have 20 excellent videos, all in Arabic, with English subtitles available as a translation option. And University of Technology Malaysia, who we're currently extremely active with, they're on their way to making 20 videos. Some of them are in English, some of them are in Malay. And we're negotiating with them a second follow-on major project with the Ministry of Education there. We have other countries that are various states of almost readiness. Japan will be the next one that joins our consortium. So you could, I call this vetted crowdsourcing, international co-creation and co-utilization. And if you think about it, Wikipedia is something like this. Although creating and designing these Blossoms lessons is much more difficult and more time consuming than writing some text. So let's see if we can go to the next sample. Every country has its own music.
So you were at the game?
Yeah, what a game.
Wow.
40,000?
40,000 in the stadium. And the stadium holds what, 50,000?
About 50,000, yeah.
Incredible. Wow. Oh, hey, it's George. George, hi.
Hi, Jordan.
Good to see you.
How are you today?
Doing well.
What a gorgeous day out.
Fantastic. Hey, do you know Isam?
Hello, Isam.
Hi, George.
I'm George. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Isam's also the Faculty of Engineering here at AUB.
Ah, is that right? Where did you study, Isam?
UT Austin.
At UT. When was that?
It was between 2000 and 2005.
You know, I used to have an office mate of mine from graduate school days who was there about that time. Do you happen to know Carl Haas?
Do I know Carl Haas? He's my advisor.
Wow.
Wow, what a small world. Imagine that. In a country the size of Lebanon, with about 4 million people, how many people does each person need to know to guarantee that any two randomly selected people would know one person in common? Think about that question for a while, and we got to get back to the classroom.
That's right.
We'll meet you there.
So that's an example of one of our lessons. It's on really the mathematics of social networks, but you can see how it starts. Okay, so here's another example of the faces of Blossoms, and you do see lots of different faces, lots of different cultures, and we're very proud of that. We're not going to go live to the Blossoms website here in this presentation, but you can, because the internet is very available. And if you go to, oh, are we live here? No. If you go to blossoms.mit.edu, you can go to the website, see our 110 plus different lessons. You can they're categorized in clusters by topic area or by math and the different sciences, biology, physics, chemistry, and also we have engineering. And they're all searchable, at least for the US teachers, by state standards. So we have up to date, up to the most recent changes in each of the 50 states for the state standards in both math and science, and also Washington, DC, and also the two growing national standards. So you can search for them that way. And, but basically, those of you who are interested, I invite you to explore the Blossoms website and see all that we have. I think one key thing about it is that every one of the 110 plus, I say plus because I don't know exactly what the count is. It's a little bit of noise, 109, 111, whatever it is. Every Blossoms lesson has its own website. So when you click through here, you'll see a whole page, which is just that one lesson. And so it'll show you the languages that Blossoms lesson is available in. And for the teacher, it provides a complete teacher's guide. And the entire lesson plan is there for the teacher. First of all, every Blossoms video lesson at the end has a private conversation between the video teacher and the in-class teacher. And that video conversation starts with the learning objectives of this video lesson, the prerequisites required, and then suggestions on what to do during each of the class breaks. When it goes to black, it's black for 10 seconds to allow time for the teacher to go and shut off the video and then guide the class through a very active learning exercise. So we suggest what the teacher might do in any of those breaks. Also, any handouts that are needed for the class are available in PDF files on our website, and those are downloadable, and she can print them out, or he can print them out and hand it out to the class. Also, a fraction of our lessons have accompanying online animated simulations. So for instance, we have one called Flu Math Games, which we created in 2009 when we thought that H1N1 was going to have a kill ratio of 6%. We were very scared, and we thought, well, maybe we could educate high school students through a math exercise as to show as they change their behavior, more hygienic behavior and more social distancing, their probabilities of getting H1N1 flu would drop, and they would see this in a simulation they would do in their classroom with different colored hats that they would wear. Well, they could then go home and do the simulation on a computer-based animated basis and get statistically significant results and write up the reports. So we have some animation simulations like that for some fraction of our lessons. I would say maybe 10 to 15%. We hope to do more. But the key thing is a complete lesson plan is there for the teacher, so the teacher doesn't have to do a lot of research. Also, we have other general online freely available resources in case the teacher wants to explore it in more depth or assign a project to the class after they experience this lesson. The last thing I'll say is that we don't care so much whether the teacher shows the entire video lesson to the class. Maybe in year one, she or he does, and maybe in year two, the teacher says, well, gee, I know that material. I don't have to show the Blossoms video now. I'll just do it all myself. Or some of the teachers who use this stuff just take 1 or 2 segments and use that in the classroom and not the entire lesson. So we're very flexible. Also, we're very bottom up. We put this stuff out there for the teachers to voluntarily use, but we haven't gone after administration bureaucracies to try to mandate the use of this in classrooms. Maybe that's a mistake, but I tend to think that let's create something of value, and then hopefully market demand will increase its use. So the Blossoms approach, basically we want to examine a topic from an unusual angle. You've seen a couple of examples of that. We want to connect science and math to the real world. We want to show what real scientists and real engineers and mathematicians do. And we want to have some sense of humor once in a while to make math fun. Here's an example. This is a photograph out of one of our lessons, one of the early lessons created in Lahore, Pakistan, by the Virtual University of Pakistan, called Donkey Cart Physics. They might say, well, how can there be physics of donkey carts? Well, a significant fraction of the mobile traffic on the streets of Lahore, Pakistan, I've been there 5 times, I know, are donkey carts. 2 wheels, 1 axle, no brakes, and yet they have to obey traffic lights, stop signs, and they have to stop, when the traffic in front stops. And they have to know how to load up the cart at 5 to 6 a.m. in the morning before they go off. Then there's 1 axle, so there's going to be, it's like a seesaw. And if you put too much weight on the back of that axle when you start loading it up, this is what happens to the donkey's front legs. They end up in the air like this. And if you believe this is just a show for Hollywood, I've actually seen this in Pakistan. So it happens. So we have to teach the owners of the donkeys and the donkey carts a little bit of Newtonian physics to understand what the concept of center of mass is. Okay, so a Blossoms lesson is not a lecture. I apologize, today I'm giving a lecture. It's inconsistent. It's not a typical lesson from a textbook. And it's not a passive experience for students. So hopefully, if you look at the Blossoms lessons, you will agree with that. Now, what is a Blossoms lesson? Well, we try to make it an interactive learning experience. We try to approach a topic from a new direction, not a textbook approach or a standard scripted lecture approach. We try to connect math and science to the real world, and we like to have it as an active learning experience for our students. Take it away. Different music for every country.
السلام عليكم وأهلا بكم في هذا الدرس. أنا عباس الحمادة، معلم رياضيات في مدرسة السعودية المتوسطة للبنين. أرى أن الرياضيات جميلة وممتعة، ولدي لكم اليوم بعض المسائل المدهشة أعرفكم بها ونقوم بحلها معا. هل أنتم جاهزون؟ حسنا، إليكم هذا السؤال.
أريدكم أن تحسبوا كم هو مجموع الأعداد من 1 إلى 100. هل بوسعكم حساب ذلك خلال دقيقتين؟ حاولوا وسأعود إليكم بعد قليل.
Okay, we'll cut. You see, that's one of the shortest lessons, in introductions. We try to engage them really early and get them totally committed to the problem we're going to focus on. And so you might say, okay, some of the integers from 1 to 100. And these are students in a middle school who have not seen a formula and who are challenged to figure it out how to create that sum. And if you think from basic principles, there are a few ways you could do that in 2 minutes. But you really have to, know your arithmetic, know your math, and be creative and maybe draw a few pictures and be able to come up with that solution. Now, it's okay if some of the students don't figure that out, because you have them frustrated and you have them totally engaged, and hopefully now they'll pay attention to the entire lesson. Okay, so when you're designing a Blossoms lesson, what are some of the things? Well, the first one, and perhaps the most difficult, is to come up with a good concept. What is it you're trying to do? What is it you're trying to teach? It should be something which is important and difficult to understand and perhaps counterintuitive. You've got all those kinds of things going on there. It might be a concept that's widely misunderstood by the students. And maybe it's a concept that has some real-world applications. Now, the pedagogical models we have blended of problem-based learning, inquiry-based learning, the so-called 5 E's, and some combinations of these. We don't really care so much which pedagogical model out of the literature is used, other than the fact that we don't want scripted lectures, and we want active learning between the breaks. And as I said before, we try to emphasize again and again and again, the key goal of Blossom's lesson is to develop students' critical thinking skills. The last thing you want to do to evaluate a Blossom's lesson afterwards is to give them a multiple choice test. So we say to teachers, if you want to evaluate the effectiveness of this lesson, assign them an extended homework problem, or extended homework exercise or project, maybe in small groups, and have that submitted maybe a week later, and then read that, evaluate that, grade that if you want, that's fine, but don't give them a multiple choice test. That's not the way to evaluate the effectiveness of a Blossoms lesson. And for teachers, and this is interesting because this is a huge surprise for us. As we started working with teachers, and face-to-face, we've trained over 1,000 teachers in our various countries, probably more in Saudi Arabia even than in the US. And the teachers come to us and they say, when we have these sessions, and we can talk with folks from MIT, and we can talk with our fellow teachers. They say, do you know how often we can talk to fellow teachers about issues of pedagogy, about content, and about how to deliver quality education? Almost never. We might meet in the faculty lounge over a cup of coffee, and we talk about, when the next vacation day is, or the cost of textbooks, or things like this. So they really enjoy getting together collaboratively and with us, and discussing education, their profession, okay? And so they have told us that the Blossoms lessons and this whole process, this training process, is actually more valuable as professional development than the actual teaching of it in the classroom to students. Not that that's not important. They say that's very important, but they say the key aspect of this is professional development for the teachers. And so we have a project going on right now funded by a private foundation in Washington, D.C., with 8 prize-winning teachers from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And they are developing their lessons primarily to use first for professional development in Massachusetts and in the USA to show other teachers about next generation science standards, the pedagogical model for introducing the pedagogy and the idea of next generation science standards. Students thinking and acting like scientists, going down dead ends, coming up with hypotheses, creating models, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's primarily for professional development, secondarily for use in classroom. So creating a Blossoms video, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but you know, when we started, we didn't really know what we were doing, and you can probably see that if you look at some of our original lessons that are 6 years old. I made the first one, so I was the guinea pig. It's called the broken stick problem. It's still up there. And I'll tell you what the problem is. You take let's take a meter stick. Take a meter stick made out of wood, costs 25 cents to buy at Ace Hardware in Massachusetts, and you get two random numbers. You get two random numbers, and there are different ways you can get the random numbers. They're uniformly independently distributed over the 100 centimeters of the yardstick. You put chalk marks where those two random numbers are. And I do this live, both on the video and actually at MIT classes and in high school classes around Boston. And I take out a very dangerous looking rusty saw, and I actually saw the thing into 3 pieces by sawing where those chalk marks are. And then I asked the students, I said, if I did this 10,000 times, and I had destroyed 10,000 of these rulers, and I had different random numbers each time, about how many times do you think I could form a triangle with the 3 pieces so obtained, where each piece of this broken stick would form one full side of a triangle? And I take estimates from the class, 90%, 100%, 50%, whatever. And then we go through that in this Blossoms video, and we actually do it in practice and show the math behind it. Again, it's not a textbook, but it requires the fundamental knowledge of graphing, of inequalities, and locating events in a space, etc. So that's the concept. Then there's the architecture. And the architecture is how many different video segments will there be? Typically it's 4 to 6. And equally important, besides what's happening in the video, what's going to happen in the classroom when the video is off? So the architecture is designing the skeletal outline of the whole thing. Then those are the 2 most important things. Then we develop a so-called pseudo-script. It's like a Hollywood performance, but we don't ask anyone to memorize. We develop the pseudo-script so we can do vetting with content experts about exactly the content that's supposed to be in the video, and we usually go through 2 or 3, 4 iterations of that. Then we do the videotaping. Then we write a teacher's guide, review and approve the transcript, and provide information to be decided on the web. But steps 1, 2, and 3 are the most important. Now, how long do you think it takes us with our video crew to create 22 minutes of Blossoms video? A full 8 to 9 hour day. The other thing is, from step 1 to step 7, the duration ranges from 3 months to 12 months for one Blossoms video. So it's not something you can just roll out of bed one day and do the whole thing. Here we have Alex Deegan, who was chief scientist and director of the Office of Science and Technology at USAID, and he says some kind things about Blossoms. And I'll let you look at that. I'm embarrassed to read them to you, but so it's nice when USAID says some kind things about us. USAID actually supported 4 Blossoms lessons that we created recently jointly with Pakistan. Here are some Blossoms titles. Gravity at Work from Pakistan. Lebanon, Gravity Assist, or Stealing a Planet's Angular Momentum and Getting Away with It. Saudi Arabia, where we take STEM and make it STEAM. We put the A in for arts, arabesque, where art meets mathematics. Jordan, Wind and Sand. In Malaysia, this is one of my favorites, Fantastic Factorials. Now, over time, we've accumulated some interest in those who redistribute OER content. And so we have a number of redistributors worldwide. They include eGranary, which if you haven't heard about it and you're interested in distributing OER content to developing countries, this is the best show in town or on planet Earth. Check it out. MIT Tech TV, YouTube, of course. Canal Futura. This is our Brazilian connection. This is the largest educational TV network in Brazil. They reach 32 million Brazilians, and they contacted us, and they said, could you send us your videos? We will translate them into Portuguese, put Portuguese subtitles on them. We will broadcast them on our network over and over again, and we'll send you back the videos so you can port them on your website. So we now have, I don't know, 40 or 50 Blossoms lessons in Portuguese. And actually, Brazil now is our #2 country after the USA, a number of hits on our Blossoms website, and we know it's all due to Canal Futura. Other redistributors. CPOMs. If you don't know about CPOMs, please find out about it if you're interested in vetted, crowdsourced OER education for high schools. This exists in the state of Florida. It's run by Florida State University in Tallahassee, and it's funded by the Department of Primary and Secondary Education of the state of Florida. And what they do is any one of you who have an OER lesson, doesn't have to be video, it could be text, it could be whatever it is, it could be a game, a digital game. If you want to submit it to CPOMs, they will then send it out to referees. These referees are content experts who are high school STEM teachers throughout the state of Florida. And these referees can be quite vicious, I mean, because they're quite knowledgeable. And they'll come back and either accept or reject your thing. We have about an 80% acceptance rate of those Blossoms lessons we submit there. Then they put them on the CPOM's website, and they also become certified on the Florida Department of Primary and Secondary Education website. And so we view this as the Good Housekeeping seal of approval. So whenever one of our Blossoms lesson is on the CPOMS thing, we put a little CPOMS icon on the web page to show that it has this Good Housekeeping seal of approval. Guru, sharemylesson.com, which gets millions and millions of hits every month. This is something you should probably know about. This is because we have more Arabic language content, I think, than any other program at MIT. We're now supported by or redistributed by the Qatar Foundation International. Okay, so getting near the conclusion here. And maybe this is the sales part for me, because I'm embarrassed that we have no French language partners with Blossoms. So I'm out really to get one or more French language partners and one or more Spanish language partners. I'm very, very close to getting 2 Spanish language partners, but not so close in the other one. So basically, what is a partnership? It means co-creation as well as co-utilization. So it means signing up to designing and creating some of these things yourselves. And typically, I mean, every agreement we have with a partner country is different. But usually, the successful ones involve the Ministry of Education, 1 or 2 premier universities, a small number of high schools, willing teachers, and a full-time local project manager. And basically then the MIT Blossoms team comes to that partner country, as we've done for every one of them except Brazil, because that's kind of a unique situation, and does live teacher training and mentors the entire process. So we have international partners in co-creation, co-utilization, and that's our current set of partners. And we might say, Canada next? Possible? France next? Possible? Now, there are many other flags, particularly some in Europe. So I didn't mean to offend anyone from a French-speaking nation that I just gave 2 examples. For instance, Belgium, but also many in Africa, and we would love to work with those countries. So basically, that's it. And I thank you for your attention. And if we have any time, I welcome questions and comments. Thank you very much.
you have in all of your videos with hands-on experiments too, for the students?
The question is, do we have hands-on experiments with the students? Yes, in some of them. The issue is that, and this makes it difficult for our chemistry ones, because the best ones to do with chemistry would be in a laboratory. But again, we're sensitive that many of our audience is directed to developing countries where the resources available for the teachers and in the schools are limited. So when we do have hands-on, we usually have equipment that's easily obtainable for a low price, like a yardstick or a meter stick and a saw. But I would say maybe 20 to 25% of our lessons have hands-on in the usual manipulative way, but others have hands-on in terms of experiential, and the majority of them are that way. For instance, flu math games, we ask each student to create for themselves 3 different colored hats at home the night before, and they come in, and the hats are green, blue, and red, depending on their state of infection or non-infectiousness in a flu epidemic. And then they take random numbers out of a hat and they kind of infect each other. So that's very much hands-on, but it's not in the usual laboratory sense. So we have a lot of activities like that.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for this really interesting presentation. I think that in your network you develop and you use a well-known concept about learning with television. It's what we call supplantation. It's a way the video can enhance and support cognitive process through the use of simulation and image. So it's old theory coming back to 30 years ago, but you do, I think, real education through media, and I think it's really important. I have a question. It's really not easy for the teachers to use this sort of material. I've been a long time ago teachers trainers for math teachers, and it was really necessary to train them to teach maths in this sort of in this types of a situation, finding and using real problems and discussing with the pupils, because I am not math teachers, but I remember that it's really necessary to know very well mathematics to do that. And I have a question: how do you prepare math teachers and young math teachers in pre-civic training? How do you do that? And a second question, perhaps: do you think it's possible to realize such an experience at university level? It's another question.
Okay, I think you've identified some very, very important issues. And I think one of the key impediments to implementation, to scaling up widespread implementation of something like this is not delivering content. This is allowing the class, when you deliver a lesson like this, to find its own path. At each time, let's take you take any one of those that we showed, or any of the other ones, and suppose you were to do it 6 times to 6 different classes. Each time that each class would go a different route. And it's a little bit scary to the teacher, because if the teacher doesn't have in-depth content knowledge, it won't be long until the students see that and learn that. It's much easier to give a scripted lecture when you have 5% depth of knowledge and don't allow questions and interactivity than if you allow this kind of interactivity and exploration. So this is, what we find, and it's basically almost every country has this issue of in-depth knowledge of the teachers, and that really has to be enhanced and expanded. This is one of the reasons that whenever we have a country partner, we go out and we train the teachers in this way of thinking and try to add in-depth knowledge in the areas that they're going to work on. But we do have, I mean, some of these lessons I think the teachers would not have any difficulty with. For instance, we have 4 applications of the Pythagorean theorem. You saw one of them mentioned here. How do you estimate distances to nearby stars? And that's one of them. We have 3 others. And I think they're all kind of neat. And I think any teacher who teaches the Pythagorean theorem would be very comfortable with these sorts of things. But that is a key issue. And the issue is in-depth knowledge of teacher training. And particularly in developing countries, I think that's the key impediment to increasing technology or no technology, the key impediment to increasing the educational quality in those countries. Now, your second question is this useful in colleges and universities as well? I think the obvious answer is yes. We don't have that right now. Our focus is really on high schools and to some extent middle schools. Although let me say this, I've been an MIT professor longer than I'm going to confess here publicly, but from the majority of these lessons, I have learned a lot myself. So take that for what it might be, but I think there's a lot of content in here that college freshmen and sophomores and professors could learn from. I know we're running out of time. Do we have time for one more question?
Hi.
Hi.
I work at the Faculty of Education here at the University of Ottawa, and I'm particularly intrigued by this gentle introduction. And I wanted to ask you whether in your training sessions or observations, whether you saw teachers taking that gentle introduction even further as a result of their perceived success or how their experience, and also if you saw on the student side empowerment to maybe even make their own Blossom video. I know it's technically the way it works is with, experienced, knowledgeable teachers, but I just didn't know if there was any effects happening as a result of using the resource. Thank you.
Yeah, well, the students, for instance, we some of our most successful, or I think best Blossoms lessons are made by students. We have graduate students at MIT. We have undergraduates, and I was going to last best to last. We have one on Avogadro's number. Done by a high school student. She was an emerging junior at South Newton High School near Boston. And I'll just tell you what the opening of it is. She's there speaking with her homeroom teacher, who happens to be also a chemistry teacher. And she shows this quiz paper. She says, I don't understand why I didn't get nearly full credit. I gave the right number, 6.02, for the number of atoms in 12 grams of carbon. And of course, the answer, it's Avogadro's number. The answer is 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. She forgot the 10 to the 23rd. So the whole thing, so the teacher says, well, that's good. You got the 6.02 right, but when you forget 10 to the 23rd, that's kind of a big forgetting, And so, but she volunteered, and her parents were in the back of the room while the video was being made to make sure that everything was okay and that she was not damaged by this experience. So we have had high school teachers, high school students volunteer to work with adult teachers. We haven't had 100% high school students making these things yet, but we would welcome that. But they have to work with us on our 6-step production process, and it takes several months to go through all that. You just can't take a videotape camera out one day and make a Blossoms lesson. It's much more complicated than that. But the teachers themselves seem to like it, and they don't feel threatened by it. As I said, the NEA, National Education Association, features it. The NEA fellow who's in charge of STEM is a content contributor to one of our monthly newsletters. We have 2 monthly newsletters. We're also on Facebook and Twitter, so you can follow us, you can friend us, and you can sign up for newsletters. See, I'm a salesman too. The price is right, it's free. There's one more question?
Yes, I like very much your pedagogical principle and the OER international collaboration. I think these are very important things. One thing that troubles me is about the video. Basically, videos are rigid and non-interactive material, and you want to use them to promote active learning. So I believe the active learning is in the lesson plan. And if I understand you correctly, you start with the video and then you build a lesson plan around it. Or wouldn't it be a good idea also to first build a lesson plan and then find out what kind of resources are needed to achieve some goals? some pedagogical goals. So basically, my question is about instructional engineering. What kind of methodology do you use to build these lesson plans?
Yeah, well, the whole thing is organic. We don't view the video as a separate thing. We view the video part, it's a teaching duet, and both parts of the duet are equally as important. So the lesson plan is we have a whole set of templates and a whole set of handouts for this thing that I didn't have time today to go through, but they're all on our website, and I think they're in multiple languages. But the idea is you start out with a concept, as I said, whatever the concept is, which is an important concept, like angular momentum. Many people don't understand, including me, don't understand angular momentum like how a gyroscope works, or when an ice skater is she's spinning around, figure skater, she's spinning around, and then she brings her arms in and she spins twice as fast, and she hasn't put any torque on her ice skates. We have one like this. So we start off with a concept like this, and then organically, the video and the live is the same. So we don't say, oh, this is going to be video content, and let's design a lesson plan around it. The whole thing is together and integrated. And I'd be happy to talk with you offline about more details of that. Thank you very much.